That is Paul Whelan, the first freed prisoner to step off the plane, obviously speaking to President Biden and Vice President Harris. And there is Paul Whelan. and there we have, just stepped off the plane, Evan Gershkovich, hands on his hips, smiling ear to ear like a young, excited journalist. He's being greeted by Vice President Harris and President Biden with a big handshake and now a hug. Monica, we are watching here. Obviously, we can't hear much. What is it like on the ground?
It was actually just a funny moment, Steph. As you saw Evan get off the plane, the president and the vice president were turned still toward Paul and his family members, and they were looking over there, and he sort of came out and put his arms out like, hey, I'm here. And the vice president turned around when she saw him and did the same thing, and they quickly went to each other for an embrace. There were mass cheers. Here's Evan and his mother. Oh. In a beautiful moment. And those cheers and those...
Paul Whelan and Evan Gershkovich are officially home back on American soil. This historic moment that you just witnessed showed that President Biden and Vice President Harris were working tirelessly to get these two wrongfully detained Americans, along with two other wrongfully detained Americans, back to the United States of America. What you just saw really is historic. This deal was the largest prisoner swap since the Cold War. 7 countries were involved, 26 prisoners were involved, and 4 wrongfully detained Americans have been released from Russian custody. Paul Whelan had been held in Russian custody for over 5 years and 7 months. Evan Gershkovich had been in custody for over 1 year. Evan is a Wall Street Journal reporter. Paul Whelan, on the other hand, was taken into custody during the Trump administration. And for a long time, the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself had said that Vladimir Putin would only execute this prisoner swap if he were president, but that proved to be wrong once again. This emotional moment of Vice President Harris and President Biden on the tarmac with these wrongfully detained Americans really shows you what true leadership is like. This was at midnight practically. They arrived at Joint Base Andrews. They had been working around the clock to secure this deal now for months. I mean, this has been a long time coming, and President Biden has made clear that he actually had to ask, for example, Chancellor Scholz of Germany to release a Russian detainee who was rightfully incarcerated without Germany getting really anything in return. I mean, this was not done for Germany to get something. Slovenia too. I mean, these countries went out of their way to help Americans and to help the United States of America get two of their own home. And I think that just is a true testament to how President Biden has led on the world stage with Vice President Harris along his side. According to reports, Vice President Harris actually met with Chancellor Scholz as well and talked about the importance of Germany playing a role in this kind of prisoner swap situation. They have strengthened America's allies and America's alliances abroad since taking office after 4 years of Donald Trump really decimating alliances. And you see this not just with this prisoner swap, right? President Biden has helped expand NATO to allow Finland and Sweden to enter that alliance after Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. President Biden has really coalesced the Western countries around supporting Ukraine, providing Ukraine with support and funding and military aid and things like that. President Biden has also secured trilateral and bilateral deals with a number of countries, has really built an axis against China with Japan and South Korea. So what you're seeing in just 3.5, almost 4 years of a Biden administration is truly historic stuff. And I think one reporting that not enough people are talking about that really shows how President Biden is a true public servant is the fact that just 1 hour before President Biden decided he was no longer running for re-election, he was going to drop out of the race, he actually called one of these world leaders and was working on negotiating the prisoner swap, was negotiating on getting these Americans home. While he was in the midst of arguably one of the biggest personal political crises here at home, he was still working around the clock to make sure that wrongfully detained Americans would come home back to their families. That is a true testament to who President Biden is, to the type of leadership that he has espoused since taking office. And I think this prisoner swap deal will just be one part of a giant legacy for President Biden when it comes to foreign policy. I mean, outside of NATO and outside of the trilateral deals and the bilateral deals, and now this prisoner swap, you had President Biden allowing the United States back into the Paris Climate Accords. You had President Biden ending a forever war in Afghanistan. You have President Biden standing with Israel following the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. I mean, his leadership is truly second to none. And Vice President Harris has been alongside him every step of the way. And I think you really saw that last night at Joint Base Andrews. So, folks, this is a very emotional moment. This is a very serious moment. And it is truly a legacy-defining moment for the president and the vice president. If you like this video and want to see more and want to know all the news you need to know about, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means the world to me, so thank you so much.